All right, so for the first time ever, Ricky and I are going to be having a guest here on Hobby Talk, and I'm very, very excited. Now, I am making this little intro before our interview because I just want to make sure that I cover a little bit of good information about what to expect ahead, because when it comes time for the interview, I want it to be more conversational than kind of an interrogation of just Q&As. So who we are going to be interviewing is somebody that we already kind of discussed just fairly recently here on Hobby Talk, and that is Collectors MD. And that is somebody who is taking the extra step in the hobby and looking out for other people within this space, because so many people, myself included, think that this hobby has turned into a means of gambling. And so many people have an addiction to gambling, believe it or not, whether that's sports gambling, whether that's going to the casino gambling, whether that's scratch tickets gambling, lottery tickets, whether it's sports cards, Pokemon cards for that matter, right? So this person has developed a platform to kind of be that help for people in this hobby, for the people that need help with their breaking gambling issues. And I'm really, really excited to kind of peel back the curtain and see what this person has to offer this hobby, how they came about, how they got into it, and what their aim goal and what they see themselves doing in this hobby down the road. I have my background in clinical mental health counseling. That's what I was doing before I opened Murph's Card Town. So I'm very, very intrigued by this topic on hand. So I think there's going to be a fantastic conversation ahead of us, and both Ricky and I are very, very excited. So without further ado, let's transition to our interview with Collectors MD. All right, we have our first ever guest here.
Yeah.
And we are very, very excited to introduce Collectors MD. However, before we dive into anything, before Ricky and I kind of give our thoughts, opinions, and ask away our questions, again, I mentioned this in the intro, which I made separately. I want this to be more conversational than, kind of like an interrogation of just, pounding you with questions and you just giving us answers. But first, before we get into anything, please introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing? And how did you kind of get into this whole space?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. Ricky had reached out to me about, Collectors MD and how he felt like it was something that the hobby, was missing, and introduced me to Murph. So, checked out a few of the episodes and just really excited and glad to be here. So wanted to thank you guys first before diving in.
You're so very welcome.
And I apologize to the audience as well. As I told you guys, I'm a little bit sick. So, if my voice is a little bit hard to hear, understand, forgive me. With that, my name is Alyx. I started Collectors MD just over 3 weeks ago, which is pretty crazy to say because it's been an absolute whirlwind to this point. Just an overflow of DMs and people reaching out, just expressing their support and admiration. So I am super grateful for all of the people who have been advocating for this movement. And, I'm just really excited for the opportunity to continue to spread that message and awareness around Collectors MD and why it is so incredibly important for the hobby and for other hobbies that involve collecting. With that, I am based in New Jersey. I have been in the hobby for about 5-6 years. I've been collecting my whole life, whether that be memorabilia growing up, obviously Pokemon and the Chicago Bulls era with Upper Deck and Fleer, Topps, collecting basketball cards, things like that. I grew up in the 90s, so had the opportunity to open packs with my dad and have a lot of nostalgic memories tied to that. And so fast forward to post-college graduation, I started to get heavy into collecting sneakers. And so for the better part of my 20s, I was it's ironic that one of the posts here says curate, don't accumulate. And then as you can see on the left, you see all the containers with the sneakers. Yeah. So I collected sneakers, and it got to a point where it was just like, I mean, you see the few I have left behind me, but it was overwhelming, the amount of sneakers that I had. And it happened so quickly. I didn't even realize that I was turning into an obsessive hoarder, as my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, would call me. And so, it got a little bit out of hand, and I had no other choice but to start downsizing. And so, the pandemic came, and a buddy of mine reintroduced me to the sports card hobby. And so I found a really, I think, healthy mix, at the time, that made a lot more sense for me, just in terms of scratching that itch as a collector. Because, obviously sports cards take up a lot less space, and, just as lucrative and exciting, and actually more exciting, because you don't know what you're actually buying into when you're, buying a box of cards as opposed to a pair of sneakers. And so I kind of pivoted my attention to the sports card hobby, and I was involved in breaking, and doing the whole breaking thing with a brand called Bogo Breaks, and a few of my buddies that I had grown up with. I had spoken about this with some of the guys on these other podcasts within the space, and it got to the point where I had to make a decision. Do I want to pursue this full time, or do I want to focus on my career and just like mess around and do this on the side? And so my buddies decided to just refocus their attention on their careers, and I continued with it for a little bit, but it was kind of impossible to do by myself, or with one other person, with how competitive the landscape has become. And so we stopped, and I still wanted to be involved. And so I started to just join more and more breaks, and buy more and more personal boxes. And it got to the point where it just
Out
started
of
to
hand.
spiral. Yeah, it got a little bit out of hand, similar to how the sneaker collecting was, to the point where, like, those massive crate containers, with like the 10 slots, like the biggest ones you could buy, or stacking to the ceiling. And that, paired with very reckless gambling, became a
Mm,
vicious cycle, where I was joining breaks, and then playing live blackjack to try to win back my losses, and then going back to the breaks, and it was just becoming so out of control. And so it's something that I've struggled with for the better part of the last 5 years or so. And for some time, I've toyed with this idea that there needs to be some sort of support group, some support system in place for collectors and hobby enthusiasts who have experienced similar to what I've gone through. And so at first I was like, why me? Why should I carry this message? It's like, practice what you preach. I didn't want to sound or come across hypocritical, right?
mm,
And I realized, almost like I had an epiphany, where it was like it needs to come from somebody who has experienced and who has lived it, and is in some ways still going through it, because there needs to be that sense of authenticity and genuine nature that comes with uh you know carrying such an important message. And so it's been a snowball effect over the last couple of weeks, just been going out there with the message around what Collectors MD is, and what we're aspiring towards, and just trying to get as much content out there to carry this message as possible. And so here we are, on another great sports card show, discussing a movement that the hobby really needs to understand, and hopefully adapt to.
And it's funny how that, like, everything you just kind of mentioned is at least from my perspective, having the shop, I see it almost every day. People kind of get trapped. They aren't focusing on the right reasons. I was just kind of going through your stories, and I saw the Michael Jordan and the Patrick Mahomes cards, and people are more focused on the price tags than the
Yep.
actual cards themselves. And it's just like, as I'm listening and as I'm looking at this, it's just like, wow, is this hobby I'm gonna say no, but I'm still gonna ask the question: is the hobby too far gone? And again, I don't think so, but it's just like the publicity behind the wrong things of the hobby is what gets highlighted more than the positivity. And it's crazy how far people have gotten away from collecting. At least from what I've noticed. I mean, you see all these influencers online posting the high price tags, right? It's not about the cool players. I mean, nobody cares about Mike Trout anymore. It's all about Paul Skeens and Jackson Holiday. Nobody cares about their favorite player anymore. It's all about whoever's the hottest and newest rookie. So it's definitely a place, this hobby, where our mindsets, and this is kind of where the whole psychological aspect of it kind of comes in, where our, or maybe what we're watching really and what kind of content we're consuming, is our mindsets are in the wrong space. But I mean, the overview that you just gave, I mean, it literally just gave me, Ricky, I'm sure it gave you a great picture of not only who you are, where you came from, how you got into the space, and kind of the projection that you have moving forward of what you want Collectors MD to do. And I guess while I have the floor right now, I guess I will apologize for thinking you were a collector from Maryland with the whole Collectors MD thing.
Yeah,
You might have saw that from the video that I
should
shared
should
with
have
you,
should have
because when
thought that
Ricky,
one over a little bit
well, when Ricky first
more.
mentioned it, I mean, I even said, I'm
Well,
like, oh, is this like a guy
my
scam or whatever from Maryland? Like, what are we going to be talking about? So I'll be honest, I had no idea until Ricky brought it to my attention too.
my name is Ricky Rips MA, and I live in Chicago now, so I
See,
didn't think that one over either.
so that's why
MA,
I had
yeah,
the
yeah,
confusion. MA for Mass, he's in Chicago now. When I see
right.
MD, I thought of Maryland, so it was a common mistake. But I guess, Ricky, do you have a pressing question you want to ask, or do you want me to just kind of fire away the questions I have?
No, yeah, I saw that post about the Mahomes RPA. That's something I never really noticed or thought about. Like people just post a price tag instead of the card. Like it, it would have been better if it said Mahomes RPA pulled, not $100,000 card pulled. That way.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yeah, it's crazy how, once you start thinking about it and you become aware uh that this is just being like shoved down our throats on a daily basis, you see it so
yeah,
much more, right?
that's
It
that's
becomes so much
Fanatics
more prevalent.
Collect. Like that's one of the bigger pages, and they're pushing it down like
Yeah.
that.
It's not a hundred
It,
thousand dollar card; it's a $98,000
you could see
card.
my comment on the post that has 15 likes, not too bad.
Yeah.
But the point is, they're it's gotten to a point where like the leaders within this space, Fanatics being the premier destination to purchase sports cards, TCG, sports memorabilia, and also experience the hobby, in terms of the content they push out. Obviously they have their Fanatics Live app, they have
Mhm.
their casino. Michael Rubin is a absolutely monumental voice, not just in our space, but also among celebrities and A-listers and such. And they're still leading with content like this. It's just a little bit alarming, you know.
Right.
And it's not necessarily a knock, right? Because it's not like the worst thing in the world to lead with price tags and a headline. It's clickbait, right? At the end of the day, this is what's
Right.
going
It's
to
for the
attract the
engagement
attention,
spikes.
right, of individuals out, not just within the hobby but outside of the hobby. Like, holy cow, this card sold for, or this card is valued at $100,000. Like, let me check this out, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like it's almost like a little bit disrespectful, not just to like the collector or the person hitting the card, but to the athlete themselves, right? Like
Right.
we're not even talking about Mahomes and his greatness and the fact that he won 3 Super Bowls at age 27 or however old he was. But we're just focusing on the fact that this piece of cardboard with his ink on it is worth 6 figures. Like, I don't know, just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. Another thing that's never told on these posts is how much money they spent chasing these
Yep,
cards.
yep,
I oftentimes will tell people at the shop is, no matter what price tag your box that you're buying is, you have to go into it with the idea that you're probably going to lose half your money just by purchasing it and cutting the plastic. And if you can make half your money back, again, whether it's a $30 box, a $300 box, or a $3,000 box, If you can make half your money back, that is a win. If you can make 15, 150 or 1500, that's a win. And you have to hope the other half is fun. You having fun on a 30, 300 or $3,000 box, because this hobby, like other hobbies too, and it's not just sports cards, but it's just so prevalent, is all built around having fun. But people forget about it because of these clickbaity titles and these videos, and again, these influencers, and like you mentioned, Alyx, these leaders are pushing not the fun collecting aspect of it, but the monetary aspect of it. And it's half backwards, because what do people more so care about? $100,000 card or Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Some would probably say Patrick Mahomes, but I'm going to argue for the case of this argument, they care about the $100,000 card, because that could have been anybody. They could have pulled a Jaden Daniels, a Caleb Williams, a Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. It doesn't matter who it is, but the
Right.
price tag is what matters more than the player.
Yeah. Murph, do me a favor. I don't know how to share my screen, but pull up Barstool, because they also posted something very similar yesterday, and very, very similar sort of theme in terms of creating this false sense of hope and illusion for collectors that they can now go ahead and replicate what just took place on a stream or a live podcast. And that's the biggest issue that I have with these sort of posts. It creates this fantasy for people.
Was it the Jordan poll?
Yeah, it was
the rookie
Big
card?
Cat pulling the Michael Jordan rookie. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it just creates this like illusion, this fantasy that people can do what these influencers are doing, ripping their third pack. You can see my comment. Look how much attention it got. 100 plus likes.
27 reviews. I bet half of those were people, calling you Negative Nancy.
You can go through it. I've actually been going back and forth with some of them, responding to as many as I could, because honestly, some of them were like thoughtful. A lot of them were combative, or just like, shut up, like you don't know what you're talking about. But this was a good opportunity, good platform to like engage with people outside of the hobby who might not necessarily be educated. Granted, a lot of these are probably just kids or trolls trying to get attention, but like this really hit home for me. And I think a lot of people will agree that, again, like, it's not as simple as just buying a vintage pack of Fleer 86 basketball and hitting a Michael Jordan rookie card in your third pack and then grading it and turning around and making 100K or whatever,
and probably go sell off the other packs.
It's not that black and white. Obviously, like, there's so much that goes into that, getting to that moment for the average consumer. Most people would have spent thousands upon thousands just to have the opportunity to open a pack like that. So, it's a matter of education and creating guardrails for the average consumer, for the average collector that doesn't truly understand the scope of this, the nature of this, and how complex it is. And it's not just rolling the dice, hitting your number, and then turning around and making a fortune. There's so much more that goes into it. And on the other hand, it's like, why can't we just take a step back and enjoy the nostalgic nature of something like this? Like, this is an iconic card, obviously, of an iconic player that many people consider the greatest of all time. Like, can we take a moment to just celebrate his greatness? What's it worth? And not focus on like PSA and the grade and the value and
but that's all that matters for a lot of these people,
is
what it sells for. I mean, you can find multi-$1,000 cards, $100,000 cards seemingly anywhere now, but who cares that that it's Michael Jordan? Who cares about the nostalgia of it? Because all of these people in this stream probably don't even know what 86 Fleer basketball is or the significance of it. They probably don't even know that there was basketball cards before then. So it's the amount of people I've noticed, at least, getting into this space that have bigger platforms, who are just kind of casuals in the space, or they just have this money kind of laying around to do dumb stuff like this, is just appalling, because it is bringing this kind of negative, not negative media, let's call it, towards the hobby. Because how many, I mean, I think I saw a comment in the Mahomes one, how many people think that this is realistic to pull this, or maybe it was in this one here. I mean, you could probably open a dozen of those Fleer hobby boxes and you might not even pull a single one. And how much money is that going to gut you? So
Yeah. And this is
it's,
vintage, right?
yeah,
Like this is completely different format. There's no parallels.
yeah.
There's no inserts. Like you just have the full card set, right? So I don't know what the odds are to pull a Michael Jordan. Obviously, there's a print run, or there's like a particular order where if like you hit I forget which player it is, but you know that the Jordan is coming, the next couple cards or the next pack, whatever the correlation is. But with ultra modern, it's just completely different ball game, so it's kind of like apples to oranges in that regard. But I think despite that clip and just like the way the culture is reacting to it is a good example of why this hobby is so desperate, is in such great need for something like we're trying to push here with Collectors MD.
So, oh, go ahead, Ricky.
Look at that.
It's big guys
21,000.
like that who will introduce new people to the hobby with that unrealistic expectation. Like,
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if down the line we get Barstool breaks, and that'll
Yep. Dave's going to see that. And he's going to be like,
right.
yep, this is our
Wow,
next
there's a lot of money in this.
moneymaker.
But, yeah, and that'll create a whole new consumer base, I guess. But I'll just bring a lot more people into the hobby who just expect to make money. Just flush money down the toilet, break after break.
I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, people who have spiraled, people who have lost not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands, millions in some cases. And it's all relative, right? It's all the amount of money you win or lose in the hobby. All is dependent upon your own personal circumstances and situations. So $1 million to one person, is not $1 million to another person. So anyway, with that, you hear very, very similar stories. And a lot of people say like, the first box I bought when I got reintroduced to the hobby, I hit this, unbelievable Sandy Koufax to 10 that I turned around and sold for 15,000 or something like that. And then it's like all of a sudden creating this false sense of illusion. It's almost like your first hit, right? Like they talk about like chasing the dragon. People always want to recreate the first time, right? You understand what I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
It's so similar in that sense where like you're just trying to recreate that same dopamine hit that you got when you hit that first big pull. So it's almost like a blessing and a curse when you hit something like that, especially when you're getting reintroduced and your mind is in so many different places and you don't fully understand, you can't fully wrap your head around what is happening and what you're experiencing, right? And then next thing you know, like you're trying to buy more and more boxes to recreate that moment to get that next big pull, and it takes you another $15,000 worth of purchases to even come remotely close. And before you know it, you're no longer in the green. You're down more money than you came in with. And it's just like the fact that those terms are so similar to gambling is another part of the problem, right? Sports cards, the hobby has just replicated it. It's turned into glorified gambling.
I mean, you can buy packs like on your damn phone now and like rip them there or
sell them
there.
right back, right?
You could sell it right back. You have it shipped to you. You could probably post it for sale or something like that. It's
the Courtyard online.
I forget what it's called.
Arena Club.
Oh, yep, Arena Club does, because I know they were having like a segment on like MLB Network with probably somebody, maybe I forget who it was, but they were like, "Oh, do you want to?" Oh, Matt Strom. I mean, like, "Hey, do you want to rip this?" He rips like 10 of them, and I don't know what he does with them, but it's like, my God, dude, 10 of them, like. But no, I mean that whole like chase thing. I mean, I see so many people. Apparently, so many new people into this hobby will buy a blaster box or a fat pack, and they pull a downtown or a kaboom or something like that. And just like you're saying, they're chasing that high, and it's like, yeah, you're at the top of the mountain very early on, but how many times in your life are you really going to do that? And it's only going down from
Yeah,
there. But that's how people kind of get sucked in, is because not
sucked
only
in.
are they seeing it online, they experienced it firsthand, and they're like, oh, I did it once, I can do it again. I see this
Mhm.
person doing it all the damn time. And it's just a negative, like you said, negative spiral effect, because gambling and sports cards, used to be so far apart and so completely different, but now it's such a tight parallel between the two. I mean,
Yep.
especially with the infusion of fantasy sports that have been around forever, with sports gambling, that's a massive one nowadays. I mean, there's commercials everywhere for it. I mean, if you're into sports one way or the other, chances are you're probably into gambling too, and you may or may not even know it. Which I think is could be exciting for people if they're responsible enough. I mean, I know I saw one of your posts saying how casinos promote responsible gambling, but the hobby doesn't.
Yep.
And I think that who's going to, I mean, everybody just want, any business just wants money, and all these breakers and all these platforms just want the end consumer's money. They don't care about your wallet, your mind state, or whatever it may be. And I think for me, at least with the background in psychology and counseling, it's just like you can only beat that horse so many times, the horse being that consumer, until they metaphorically die, but until they kind of get out of the whole gambling aspect of it, and they just
Yep.
tap out and can't do it anymore. And how many people are going to continue to come around to be like to replace that person? So I think, and I've said this before with Ricky plenty of times, I think Whatnot as a whole, and I'm just going to kind of point to Whatnot because they're probably the first and the biggest culprit here. I think Whatnot in a vacuum is great for the hobby. It allows people to kind of sell dollar cards. It allows people to buy cards for cheap. It allows people to kind of, buy a box and break it if they're doing it, and wholeheartedly in a good way. There's a lot of good things. You can make connections there, but the degree and the level that it's gotten to, with backyard breaks and people scamming and sleight of handing cards, is what's bad for the hobby. And then you mix
Yep.
in the advanced repetition and then the advanced gambling component of it. But to wrap up my point real quickly, so I just want to clarify, just for people listening. So you don't have like any kind of background in like counseling or psychology. It's just more experience based for you, what you've seen, what you've been through, and your experiences, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
And I
a
think that's
doctor.
important though. I think that's
Yeah.
important though, because it allows other people to, maybe hear what you have to say or see what you have to say on social media. Sorry, my other screen's over here. And it allows them to be like, all right, well, he's just an average guy. He's just another guy in the hobby who did it, and had an admission of whether it was doing something wrong, guilt, or just bad habits. And hey, now they kind of took a turn for the better. If he can do it because he's just some average guy, I can do it too. And I
Right.
think that's more important than if you had a background in any kind of medical field.
Exactly. And that, goes back to the point I was making earlier in regard to this imposter syndrome that I was experiencing before, launching Collectors MD, right? It's like I'm not a doctor or a licensed therapist. I don't have any experience in offering therapy or, services or resources to individuals who are seeking help, especially within the mental, wellness space, which is uh, a very, very vulnerable space to begin with. But what I do have is experience and I've lived it. And
Mhm.
so
I think that's
that
so
can't be
important.
replicated, right?
Yeah.
Counselors, therapists, doctors, they study and they understand the nature of what's causing the root issue, but they've never truly experienced the root issue in most cases.
Hmm.
But it's just, to me, it's so important for the person carrying this message or leading the way with this message to have gone through that experience.
Yeah. And I think experience is very important for a lot of people. Just not just from the hobby or anything, just in life in general. But again, it's so many people. experienced so many different things, they kind of get caught up, I think, focusing on the wrong things. And there is a time and a space to focus on the wrong things. But when it comes to the hobby specifically, I mean, so many people watch backyard breaks for the entertainment. So many people are watching sudden death auctions, for the entertainment. And I guess if you want to just stick to the entertainment aspect of it and keep your debit or credit card out of it, that's fine. But once you kind of partake into it, you're just feeding the fuel of that whatnot, breaker or whoever, and you're
Yeah.
no better than the rest of them
Yeah.
because I stand on the edge, and I will die to my grave saying this, that if you and your buddies all chip in to buy a box 4 ways, a nice box, and you break it amongst each other over pizza and some beers, whatever, that is all fine and dandy. That sounds super fun. I would love to do that with some friends. But I think that's as far as breaking, in my opinion, should go. I don't do any breaks around here because I don't really care for it. I've tried doing cheap ones. Nobody wants them, but they'll spend hundreds of dollars with backyard in a heartbeat. So,
Yeah.
like, if you're having fun with a group of friends, fine. But like, once you go online and you feed into the negative BS that we see on Whatnot or Drip or Fanatics, because like whoever or wherever, then you're just again, I don't think you're any better than anybody else. And I don't try to mean that, in a mean way. It's just like, when are people going to learn?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is it going to take for that person to like yourself? I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm in a bad space.
Yeah.
I've spent so much money. Like, so let me ask you personally. And sorry, Ricky, I'll let you squeeze in.
No, you're good. Go
I guess
ahead.
I just, at what point was it laying in bed? Was it after a bad break where you got nothing? You looked at your bank account. At what point were you like,
Man.
I can't do this anymore? Like, was there just one moment?
No, that's the thing, Murph. It's not one moment. It's been countless moments of experiencing exactly that, where it's just utter burnout. That feeling of dread, that feeling of, what did I just do? How did I just spend all of that money so mindlessly, so recklessly, so carelessly? And now I have to face the consequences. I write these daily reflections, is what I call it. And I publish them every day. I don't know how many people actually read them, but it's therapeutic for me. And I've had a lot of or a handful of people contribute and write for this blog. And so I wrote one last week that I think really relates to this story. It's a short one, but I'm just gonna quickly read it because I think it really hits home what you're talking about here, Murph. So the article was written on the 9th, so it was like 8 days ago, and the title is "The Algorithm Finds You." So I'm just gonna read straight from
Please
the
do.
page. You might not go looking for the break, but the break knows how to find you. Late at night, during a rough patch, in a moment of boredom or burnout, the ads show up, the clips autoplay, the algorithm knows your patterns, it remembers what you lingered on, and it isn't guessing. That little hit of content is designed to reel you back in, and it doesn't care how you're doing mentally, emotionally, or financially. You mindlessly click on the ad and re-download the app you previously deleted over 100 times before. You reluctantly tell yourself, I'm just watching, but watching becomes browsing, browsing becomes clicking, and clicking becomes spending. And just like that, you're back in the cycle you fought to leave, the cycle you promised yourself you're done with. This isn't just about box breaks or sports cars. It's about free giveaways, rare finds, flash sales, one-time discounts, anything designed to hook you fast and keep you chasing. It's about what happens when passion turns into pressure and no one's talking about it. Awareness is power. Recognize the pattern, reclaim your space. The algorithm doesn't get to decide your story. So, like, you could have that burnout moment time and time and time again. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the wherewithal, if you don't have the self-control to be able to stop yourself when they start reeling you back in, that's when there's a problem. And with gambling, you can self-exclude. You can tell the gaming commission of whatever state you live in that you no longer want to participate, and they will literally block you out. You could walk into a casino and try to gamble, and they will literally escort you out for trespassing. That's how serious they take it. That doesn't exist in the hobby. Whatnot, Fanatics Live, these breakers, they could give two shits, excuse my
All
language,
right.
about who you are, where you come from, and the amount of money you lost. They just want your money. They just want your attention. And that's what it comes down to. So it's a sad reality, but we got to do something about it.
So it's just like how many, like, I mean, we every casino, every state, like you mentioned, has these strict regulations, these laws, because it is, kind of how these gambling businesses, or casinos, empires, they thrive off of these laws, and they have to abide by these laws. Otherwise they're going to get shut down and their whole business is gone, because casinos and gambling is a huge business, and it's a huge money pit. But when it comes to the hobby, like you said in that article, it doesn't matter how you're feeling or what kind of day you've had or how much is in your bank account. They just want your money. And I think almost every breaker, I don't watch a lot of breaks, so I can't say this, so I could very well be wrong, but I would love to think, actually, I think that a lot of breakers, I don't know what percentage, but it's a very high percentage, don't really care about the hobby itself. They don't care about your experience in the stream. They just care if you're joining the break and how much you're spending in the break.
Right.
I think that's like their bottom line. They don't care that you're pulling the cards that you want, or you're buying the cards that you want, or you're getting the teams that you want. They just want to know if you're participating, how much you're spending, and how often are you spending.
They also don't care how much you've spent with them historically, right?
Yes.
Like, and I hate to give the casino, the gambling world, their flowers, in any capacity, because it is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous than what we're talking about here. But at least they take care of their high rollers.
That
At
is
least
true.
they put you,
Right.
you up in like the penthouse and give you free stuff and invite you to the games and take care of you and scratch your back and make you feel important. Not to say that's a good thing, because that's what sucks you in. But like, the hobby doesn't even offer that. How many breakers, or how many like local sports or local card shops offer their top spending customers some form of VIP treatment?
Like a
I've spent
something.
tens of
Yeah.
thousands, if not more, with certain break groups. I won't name any names. Certain breakers, certain card shops.
Oh, fire away,
And
man. This is a
the
safe
the
space.
most I've gotten, maybe $100 discount or $100 gift card here and there. Like thanks for thanks for your support, thanks for your business, a sticker, a koozie, a hat. Like,
A pen.
what are we doing?
I got a pen from
What are we
somebody.
doing? Right? Like, you could walk away and never spend with them again, and they won't even blink twice,
Nope.
because they don't care about their customers. They care about the customers' wallets. They care about the customers' bank accounts, money in those bank accounts, and that's it. That's what it comes down to. It's a business at the end of the day. There's one breaker in particular that I've spent the most money with to date of all of the breakers that I have spent money with, by a landslide. And I've had conversations with the owner about this, and I've asked them, why didn't you offer like a VIP program? Why didn't you offer like I don't know, some form of give back to like your top 2% customers, your top spenders? And they literally chalk it up as, well, we have the most competitive pricing in the industry. You get the best deals with us. So,
Which is open to everybody.
Right.
and that doesn't even exist anymore, because Fanatics has created some form of regulation in regards to pricing, and it's people, they still
Well,
price
that's
price gauge and do whatever they want in terms of
right.
pricing the boxes. But like, it's like, are you kidding me? That's the answer you give me? But anyway, I don't like to talk about this topic, because it feeds into the concept of going back and spending more. And it's like, if that did become a thing, it would just attract more people and would end up screwing over the majority of the people that would get involved with that, because they would just keep coming back. And at the end of the day, the house always wins. So the reason why they give you that penthouse and they give you all the free food and tickets and everything else is because you're going to spend the money. They want to get you inside of the establishment. That's all that matters to them. They don't care how much money they need to throw at you. Eventually you're going to give it back to them, and then some.
Right.
Preach.
So,
Preach. What are you gonna say, Ricky?
No, I was going to about the whole VIP, treatment thing with whatnot breakers and all that. I feel like a big reason they don't do it is because they don't have to. Like
There's no need to.
they're still gonna get people and they're spending money. Like you said, if you or whoever else walked away, they wouldn't even notice because other people will fill that spot. So it's like they, at the end of the day, like you said, they don't care about their customers.
And real quick, Ricky, here's the other thing about comparing gambling to sports cards. And again, I don't want to endorse gambling or any means of playing blackjack or sports betting. Don't do it because it's just not healthy and you're never going to win in the long run. With that said, when you sit down to play a hand of blackjack, at least you have a 50-50 chance of winning. At least you have a 50-50 chance of doubling your money. When you sit down and spend $500 on a hobby box, you have maybe a 10% chance of making your money back, let alone profiting. It's like that alone should deter people, but it doesn't. It doesn't. And people justify it by saying, well, at the end of the day, like you said, Murph, just paying for the entertainment. There's the entertainment value and, it's the nostalgic factor of opening a box of sports cards like I used to when I was a kid with my dad or like whatever. Who are you kidding? The way people open cards today versus how it used to be in the 80s and the 90s. It's not even in the same stratosphere. Like
people like to
different.
I feel like they like to join breaks for a rooting interest. Like you'll see a lot of like sports bettors, they'll throw $5 on a game, they'll throw, $50 on a game, whatever. And they're just like, it just gives me something to root for. I'll admit it, during football playoffs, I'll do the same thing during the championship weekend and the Super Bowl. I'll pick a few 3 or 4 props. I'll throw $5-10 on. If I win, that's great. If not, who cares? But it just gives me something to root for. I want Saquon to get in the end zone twice, whatever it may be. But let me ask you this. Because I feel like
if you could do that, more power to you.
It's called control and restraint, honestly. Because once the games are over, delete the app.
If you can be an adult, like I salute you, and I am just, I have nothing but good words to say about people who have that sense of control, and most people do, frankly. But there are people that don't, and we need to help those people.
People ask me all the time, like, how do you not rip all that product, on the shelves? I'm like, well, I buy it once, and I look at it as the mindset of if I open it, I buy it a second time. Which any business, any ROI, any profit, model, you can't buy something twice and expect to profit off of it. You just can't. So it's like, I don't really care for this certain set, this Court Kings basketball set personally. Or maybe it's like football. Absolutely, I could care less for it. So why would I even open it? Like, sure, it would make great content. Sure, it would be nice to kind of expose so I have a better understanding of the product. Sure. But there's too many products that come out. So it's like, why expose myself so I can understand this product better? Sure, it might help me sell it better. But like, there's going to be something else next week. So why does it matter? And I'm not going to keep opening.
Flavor of the week. Yep.
Exactly. So it's just like, you can go on YouTube and find a million people who are opening the product if you want to kind of, look at it and see what comes out of it. I'm not going to try to, be a fish swimming in that school with, all these other bigger breakers or bigger box openers. But I do want to ask you this question though, because we've been talking a lot about, I'd say, the negative aspect of it, but obviously when we're trying to bring awareness to something, we have to accept something. And that acceptance is unfortunately negative. But in your perspective, where do you see, or where would you like the hobby to go, maybe within just a year from now, with the promotion and the introduction of Collectors MD? Like, this time next year, where do you expect Collectors MD to be, and where would you like to see the hobby?
It's a great question, and it's a hard question to answer because
it's definitely not black and white.
It's not black and white. It's only been a few weeks, but the amount of momentum and support I've received in such a short time has been so overwhelming that I feel like this potentially has wheels to, take some leaps and bounds and become a mainstay in a hobby, in an industry that is so desperate for something like it. So in a year from now, I would love to see, just at the bare minimum, some guardrails in place. So, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with Collectors MD. Like, you know, I'd love to help push the reform for it. I'd love to help advocate for this to be a mainstay. But like, you know, I'm just one person. I'm not like a gaming commission. I'm not gonna like come in like the SEC and just like lay down the law. That's not what we're trying to do. Just trying to, you know, spread awareness. But I would love to see guardrails. I would love to see Fanatics and or whatnot, Loop, whoever else say, okay, we have to offer the customer, the consumer, the option to put themselves in timeout, which in gambling terms, that means cool off, where you can't access the app. Once you put yourself on that exclusion list, you cannot access the app no matter how hard you try. They have your IP address, they have your social security number, they have all of your credentials, so that the only way you could access it would be through, you know, somebody else. I mean, you know, addicts find a way around it, but at least put something in place, you know, a safety net feature, so that people can stop themselves in a moment of vulnerability and desperation, right? Like Murph, you were talking about all these different products that we have access to. You know, like I could say this because I've experienced it. There have been times at 2, 3 a.m. where I'm so desperate for a hit, that dopamine hit, that next big card, where I'll open anything. You know, I'm like at the you know, the
Chronicles Blasters, baby.
bottom of the barrel, just trying to scrape whatever I can, trying to join whatever live channel is still, you know, is still live. And you know, now it's 24/7, but you know, just trying to find somebody who's selling anything. And it's like, I found myself ripping product that I never in a million years would have thought I would open, right? Like I always tried to limit myself to basketball, football, baseball, like
The
the
main
three
stuff.
main sports and the three main leagues, right? Like I'm not opening up WNBA or, you know, college or you know, I'm not really a hockey fan, but like I'm not ripping hockey, I'm not ripping UFC or WWE or F1 or any of these other sports, or, you know, secondary sports, if you will, that have become mainstream within this space, right? But you know, if it's out there and it's available at 3 a.m. and you know, I need that itch scratch, and it's the only thing I can open, you know, I'll give it a shot. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
you know, like there have been times where it's like the stream ends, or like the money runs out, or you know, my credit card gets declined because you know I've exceeded my daily limit, and I literally can't spend another dollar even if I tried. And I'm itching. I need to in that moment so badly, but then I just end up falling asleep, and the next morning I wake up with a sense of relief that like I wasn't able to. It's like your mindset completely changes in the daytime or like in the morning, right? Versus like that late night when you're like really, really craving. And so if there was an opportunity to stop yourself before you end up in that situation, so like in the morning when you're like, oh, I can't believe I went down that rabbit hole. I'm like afraid, like all I could think about all day is like, what if I end up there again later tonight? Give me the opportunity to prevent myself from putting like that alone will give people peace of mind, right? It's one less thing to worry about. It's one less thing to like think, you know, like I don't even have the option to, like, I'm self-excluded from gambling. I did the maximum 5 years in New Jersey. I did this you know, when I stopped gambling in April of 2023, and I can't gamble, and I don't even really think about it, right? Like it's just not really top
It's
of
all a
mind.
mindset.
Like,
That's really what it
yeah,
comes down to.
when it was there, when it was an option, I would always think about like, well, what about the deposit match? What about the bonuses? What about like, you know, all these freebies? Like, what? Just one more hand won't hurt. And then it's such a slippery slope that like, no matter how you approach it, you're going to end up going full tilt at one point or another. It's just a matter of time. So that was a very long-winded answer to your question, Murph.
It's
But
all
I
good.
just want to see some guardrails in place that help protect the end consumer. And I, you know, one other thing I just want to caveat is that a lot of people, like when I spoke with the guys at the Real Card Show, you know, Cage and Valor, both great dudes, they were having fun with it, you know, but they were talking about, they were like, you're an adult. Like, you don't need like a net nanny or like somebody to help you. Like they couldn't wrap their heads around it per se. Like they could, but at the same time they were like why can't you just be an adult? And that's something that comes up all the time in GA, because I went to GA meetings for a couple of years, and we can get into that if we have the time. But you know, spouses and significant others are like, why can't you just be a grown adult and be responsible and not gamble? But unfortunately, we live in a day and age where it's just not that simple. And an addict is an addict, no matter how you slice it. You can't tell an alcoholic who's addicted to drinking to just stop drinking. It's not that simple. And like it's not a cop out. It's not like an excuse or a justification. It's the reality. Addiction is addiction, and it needs to be treated appropriately. And I just want to see people in this hobby have the opportunity to get that treatment the same way any other addict would. I just want it to be taken seriously.
I like that. That was a good answer. Do you have a follow-up for that, Ricky, before I ask another question?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that these bigger companies want, their consumers to feel protected, safe in a hobby, but it really shows their mindset of at the end of the day, they just want your money. They don't care about you. I think that sucks.
They just care about your money. Like
people should realize that they don't care about them.
Yeah.
I do think there's like a psychological element. I mean, we've already kind of talked about it a bunch when, it comes to addiction and that dopamine hit. But like outside of that, I want to know, I mean, maybe you could speak about experience. Like other than that, other than the dopamine, the chase for another hit, like what is that underlying reason to do it? And it could be a rhetorical question. We don't need to dive into it because I do have another question I do want to ask. I think it's a little bit more important. But like, I mean, I guess I'll ask both of you this. I want to kind of like ask this question. Ricky, I'll ask it to you first. Are singles any better? Like obviously it's a safer purchase. You know what you're getting compared to a break. And you can make that purchase price anything you really want. You could go from quarter cards, you can go to $1,000 cards. But just in a vacuum, the practice, the principle behind it. And then Alyx, I'll ask you after Ricky, but how much better is singles? You could buy $100 cards, $100 cards, and the next thing you know, it tanks 20%. Would you be better off just buying the box and being done with it? Or is the singles being able to walk away with something better?
So I feel like it depends on the mindset that you're going into it with. Like, are you buying a single because you think it'll shoot up?
Yeah.
Or are you buying the single because you like the player? So like if it's a card you like, I don't think it necessarily matters the value of it. Like obviously you want it to maintain or grow, but at the end of the day, you're getting a card you like. And I think that's more important or better than buying to make money.
Yeah.
At least you're getting something that you want out of it. Whereas you could spend hundreds of dollars on breaks and get base cards.
Yeah.
And
they don't even send you base cards.
Right. So at least you're getting something that you want out of it if you're buying to collect. But if you're buying to invest, I mean, I guess that's no different than buying a box.
Yeah. So, Alyx, where do you stand on this? Like, obviously, I feel like the way I'm interpreting it, and probably the direction you're going with, is more the whole breaking platform, your whole live stream platforms. People diving into that unconsciously, basically. But like, when you're buying singles, whether it's on one of those platforms or buying singles, say at a show, is there any difference? Is it any better? Is it more acceptable? I think from a collecting standpoint, like what Ricky said, I think it's totally fine because if you want to spend $100 on a guy, go ahead. It doesn't matter. Do whatever you want that'll please your collection needs. But like, why do people buy these multi-$100,000 boxes? Because they think that they're going to buy in cheap and get something crazy. So for them, it's a way of an investment. But like, if you're looking at singles from an investment standpoint, in your opinion, is there any difference?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's definitely a gray area because it really depends on the person. I'll lead with singles. Buying singles, going the singles route is obviously much safer than joining breaks, but it's less appealing because it doesn't have that excitement factor. And one thing I'll say, that I've always enjoyed about getting into breaks or just what eventually evolved into just buying my own personal boxes was that if I hit like a top prospect, I'll give you an example. 2021 Bowman came out. This was Bowman draft. And at the time, Carson Williams, shortstop prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays, wasn't like a big name. I think he was like a top 15 player. But I hit his black refractor to 75 on card auto, his first Bowman. And I ended up holding on to it because he had a really cool like autograph, like penmanship. He signs his name with like a star. And so I ended up holding on to it. And like now I find myself rooting for the guy, right? I'm like rooting for the guy to play well and to move up the rankings. Well, as it turns out, he's now a top 5, top 10 prospect. And so I ended up grading the card. It got a PSA 10, autograph 10, and I held on to it for a long time. And then he didn't get called up this year. I think his ETA is either this year or next year. But I said, like, why am I holding on to this card? You know, like I hit it, like, but like there's no real sentimental value here. So I ended up just selling it. I got rid of it. Like, you know, I'll still root for the guy, whatever. But like I realized that, you know, the only reason why I was rooting for this guy was because I hit his card in a box of Bowman. And like there's a cool factor to that to some extent, but there is literally no other reason why I'm rooting for the guy. So
make some money, yeah.
Exactly. So with that, on the other side of the coin, Collectors MD is intended to help people with compulsive spending across all categories, verticals, hobbies, whatever you want to call it. And the sports card hobby is the most lucrative because excuse me, because of that excitement factor, because of the fact that you are buying into something that you don't know what you're getting in return. You don't know what the contents of the box is, which is what makes it glorified gambling, right? And so if you're just buying singles, that eliminates that. And now you're just back to regular collecting where you're just buying, you know what you're getting. You're buying a pair of Jordan 3s, you know you're getting a pair of Jordan 3s in the mail, right? But when you buy a box of a hobby box of Prism and you open it, when it gets hit, like you don't know what you're going to hit. You don't know if you're getting back 10% of your of your investment. You don't know if you're getting back 100%, 200%. And so it creates, you know, a sense of, it creates an illusion. It creates like, you know, that fantasy, like I could potentially double my money if I buy into a break or if I buy a hobby box, you know, of sports cards. And so that's why I feel like obviously buying singles is much safer, but you can still fall into the same trap from buying singles because of the emotional and psychological burnout that comes with spending compulsively, right? Like I've been in, you know, just a spectator where like I see a really nice card get hit in a break where I'm not even in the break, or maybe I am in the break and somebody else hits the card. Next thing I know, I find myself trying to find that same card on eBay to buy it for myself, right? So like,
or to see what it's worth, just to kind of
worth, and the next thing you know, like you're overspending on it just like because you want to scratch that itch, and it comes in, and then like a week later you're over it, and you want to sell it, and you're going to lose money on it because the product's no longer as hyped, and it's a vicious cycle, man. You just have to do it. You have to buy with, or I should say collect, not buy. You have to collect with intention, not compulsion. And that's just the important part. So there's so many ways you can look at it. There's so many different answers. And again, it's case by case, person to person. But as long as you're doing it responsibly and with intention, you know, you have my blessing. More power to you.
I hear that. And I think there's so many factors that go into it, but I think a lot of people who are kind of stuck in this rut, let's call it, just don't see the bigger picture. I mean, it's kind of circle back to a previous point, like just be an adult. Like, I mean, you got kids, you got a wife, you got family, whoever, whatever. And it's just like, at the end of the day, it's just cardboard. And we really make we make the market. I mean, I'm telling people religiously, like, hey, don't buy scalped Pokemon product. Don't buy product that's too overpriced, because if you just stop buying it, then won't be able to sell and they're going to lose money eventually, or you'll be able to find it cheaper. And I think there's a lot of similarity, or at least a lot of crossover to the sports world. Is like, if people just, I mean, let's just play a hypothetical. Like, if everybody in the world just stopped buying into breaks, there's going to be a dramatic price collapse in spots, because these breakers still need to sell those boxes. And even if they take a loss on it, they're just happy to move it to keep things rotating and going. So
Yep.
it's just like, obviously that's not going to happen, but it's just like, if people collectively was to just kind of open their eyes, let's just call it, lack of better words, then maybe the breaking space can even become a little bit better, a little bit healthier. Kind of circle back again to another point, having guardrails in place, or having, safety systems in place, or just to have people just be more vigilant and conscious, excuse me, when it comes to this stuff. Then the whole breaking element of the hobby, and it's not even really a hobby, breaking, to be honest, but if that whole aspect can dramatically change, or just small changes along the way over between now and the next year, to go back to a question I asked, then maybe breaking can be fun for people, or it can be healthier in some ways. I mean, I'm still going to be against it completely, again, unless you're with some buddies, having a few drinks and some pizza while you're opening some cool cards. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it's just a pit of misery for people.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a losing game.
yeah, I mean, Rob Veers from Burbank says the reason why they don't do breaks, I mean, and they're the place that could do all the breaks in the world with all the product they have, but it's
Right.
like 8 out of 10 times you join a break, you're leaving unsatisfied. So would you do anything
I would
at
say
20% for satisfaction?
I would
Probably not.
say probably 9.5 out of 10 times.
I would agree. I think he kind of lowballed it there, because it's like,
Yeah.
for every $1,000 you spend on a break, how much of that are you making back? Sure, there's going to be a one-off where you absolutely hit. Sure. But how many times are you breaking?
Yeah.
I mean, like just from the quote on your website, just to finish my point, so the quote from your website, 50,000. How much money do we think that guy actually made back?
Right.
Or how much value he obtained from those breaks?
Yep. And these are all real quotes, by the way. It's crazy, man. It really is. It's the camaraderie and the excitement that these breakers create, right? Especially for kids who are just coming into the hobby, or who are uneducated, and maybe they're using their savings, their life savings, or their college fund, or their parents' money. And then these breakers are like, why break anywhere else? And you got to get into this next one, and
the cheapest around,
trade backs, and like all of the excitement and the lure,
stash and pass. Like,
I hate to say it, and I don't mean to sound cynical, but it's just
so everyone's
predatory. It's just so predatory.
I'll never forget. I think it was Backyards. They were doing a break on something. I forget what product it was. It wasn't like a Chronicles or anything. Maybe it was Prism. I have no idea. And they pulled, I think this is Derek Carr's first season in New Orleans. And I was just watching because I was bored at the shop one day, and Prism just came out. Again, I think it was Prism. And they pulled the Derek Carr out of 149. And I kid you not, they flipped out like they just pulled RPA, like an RPA of the Mahomes, from earlier we were talking about. It's like, guys, it is a mid-tier quarterback who is overpaid, who is probably in the last leg of his career. Why are we going crazy over a $2.29 card? Like, the break spot was probably $100, to be honest. It's just like, what are we doing, guys? Like, I mean, it's not just Backyard, but they were the poster child.
Right.
I mean, it's so many breakers, it's so many companies, it's so many streamers, and it's even the people who are buying into it too.
They all mimic each other, man. It's like they're all one and the same. And again, I'm not trying to knock anyone or knock any breakers, and like, I respect the hustle. At the end of the day, it's just a business, and a lot of these individuals that work for these brands, these breakers, they're just doing their job, right? They're just trying to do right by the company. So I get it, right? I respect it. But like, we just need to create a sense of regulation, of like, if you feel like you're going down a slippery slope and you need a little bit of help, you need a little bit of guidance, like, we're here for you. That's all it really is, man. That's all it is. And it's like, you can collect, you can continue to collect, you can continue to join breaks, just make sure you're doing it responsibly. Make sure you're doing it with intention. And if you feel like you can't do that, if you feel like you're at a point where you can't join a break or you can't watch a break or consume the content without like getting that itch, then maybe it's time to like hit the pause button and just reset and just rethink what your goals are and what your life is all about, right? Because at the end of the day, like, this is affecting people's livelihoods, and that's where it starts to get scary.
Amen.
Marriages are being affected and children are being affected, and we don't want all that. We like, this hobby should be full of joy and positivity, and like, that's what we're trying to push. We're not trying to be cynical or rain on anybody's parade or be this black cloud in the hobby. If anything, it's like we're trying to be a breath of fresh air, a shining light for people who need the help. And it's like okay to admit that you need the help, or like, somebody who needs the help, or you have a customer that needs the help. What I would love, and I'm just spitballing here, just kind of thought of this, but like, if a break company had like a set of terms where they, like a guide of sorts, where if like they can identify if one of their customers is starting to overspend, overextend, lose it, go down a spiral, they can then work with us at Collectors MD to figure out a solution to help that individual. It's not like let me rat out like this person and they need help, like let's get them help. It's more so just like providing them with that guidance, that sense of security that just doesn't currently exist.
I agree. Ricky, any final questions before we kind of go into our outgoing takes, which is a segment we always do to wrap up episodes?
Cool.
But any other final questions or anything, Ricky, before we go over there?
Yeah, I just want to talk about a point you just made. Like, we're not cynical. We don't hate the hobby, anything like that. Like, ironically enough, the sports card hobby helped me get over my gambling addiction. Like, back during COVID, when all the sports were just coming back, that's what I spent most of my money on, like offshore bookie betting. Like, once I started doing sports card, that took the focus off of that, and like, the sports card helped me get over my gambling. Like, I'll still place a bet every now and then, but I just enjoy sports cards way more than I enjoy gambling, and I'm getting something out of it.
It's physical too. That's the thing. I mean, how many parlays can you place in? Even if you win, what are you walking away with? Sure, you're walking away with a little bit of money in your account, but like, I mean, money comes and goes all the time. But I mean, if you buy a card, it can always stay forever. Like, I got a bunch of cards here in my backdrop that I don't ever see myself getting rid of unless I can upgrade, and I don't mind paying the money for them. And at least I have something to showcase, and I can walk away with something at the end of the day. So no, I agree with you completely.
Me too.
And a big reason why I never got into the breaking business or repack business or anything like that is because I understand what it's like to lose your money and get nothing out of it. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be that person who takes people's money not getting anything out of it.
Right.
Like, I can't get myself to do that.
Nope. Again, I mean, I think there's a line of fun and degeneracy. Now, I think that line's going to be a lot different for everybody. But I mean, at least for me, I mean, even as a shop owner, like, could I run breaks? Sure. I mean, we all have platforms. Could we all do it? Sure. But like, I mean, I pride myself so much on, having fun and a happy and healthy hobby. And it's just like, breaking is not that. It's just not that in any way, shape, or form, at least for, I'd say, the majority of people in this hobby or in this space for that matter. But to transition to our outgoing takes here, Alyx, what Ricky and I like to do to wrap up each episode is we like to just kind of circle back to one point that we talked about. It could be something that we did talk about or didn't talk about, something we just kind of want to mention before we wrap up today's episode. So I'll let you go first so you can take the floor on that one. It could literally be about anything. It could be about nothing. It could be about this or that, but fire away.
Man, really...
Put you on the spot. Yeah,
put me on the spot.
Do you want me to go? I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Murph?
Okay. So, My outgoing take here is to, I mean, I think I kind of maybe mentioned it probably 1,000 times already, is just have fun in this hobby, whatever that
Yeah.
is. Responsible fun, being an adult. I kind of like how you mentioned that. And at the end of the day, really, this hobby is just built on cardboard, mostly shiny cardboard with a little bit of ink and some napkin patches. And, people are going to spend what they're going to want to spend. They're going to make the decisions that they're going to make, whatever it is, however you do it or how much you spend. Just have fun doing it. And if you're doing it because you need that itch or you need that dopamine, then you're probably into it for the wrong reason.
Wrong
Now,
reasons.
sure, fun and dopamine can have a strong correlation together, but I think we all know a really good separation between needing dopamine and having fun. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, we could all go to the store right now and probably buy a fat pack for $15 and probably rip it and have some fun and we're done. Whereas whoever needs that dopamine itch needs to buy the next pack and the next pack in the whole box and then another box. And it's just, there needs to be a difference there. And I think for a lot of people, there is a good difference, or at least they know that difference. But just whatever your plan is, whatever your path is, whatever you're doing in this hobby, whether you're a breaker, you're a streamer, you're a seller, you're a buyer, trader, shop owner, whatever, have fun. And I preach that all a lot. Ricky can testify that, but that's really what this hobby needs to be. And you could probably look at any hobby, whether it's sneakers, comics, video games, action figures, new, old, anywhere in between. The majority of them are probably having fun to some degree. Maybe not sneakers because that's a little bit intoxicating from time to time, but just have fun. I think that's a good outgoing take for myself.
I like it. Ricky, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, for people who are going through, an addiction in sports card, whether sports card gambling, whatever, just need people to know that they're not alone. They're not the only ones who are up at 3 a.m., like you said, buying into a break of, I don't know, college lacrosse, even though they don't know anything about it. Like, they're not, people aren't alone. And it's important that they find the resources like your page. So they'll let them know that they're not alone and that there is help out there and people who are just like you.
Yeah.
100%.
Easy. A lot shorter than mine.
Cool. I'll close it out. So, we talked a lot about collecting versus gambling and how, there are a lot of synergies there. And there's obviously a lot of blurred lines between collecting and gambling these days. So the question is, and people are going to continue asking this question as we continue to push this message is it even okay to collect? If you're pursuing this as part of, your life's mission, or, you're advocating for this movement. And the question is, it's more than okay. We're not like Gamblers Anonymous, where we're telling you that gambling is the devil and you have to self-exclude and you can never do it again in your life. And it's a lifelong commitment journey. And while with collecting and doing it responsibly 100% is a lifelong journey, it doesn't mean that you have to stop collecting or you can't appreciate a nice item, or like you said, Murph, like a tangible object, that material good that you save up for or you purchase with intent. So it's just collecting when it's done with intention. It can be filling, it's healthy, it can connect you to what you truly love, whether that's your favorite team, a piece of pop culture, a specific moment in time that's nostalgic, or even just something, a certain aesthetic that you vibe with. So for a lot of us, collecting, again, it brings us back to nostalgia. It gives us something to look forward to, and it helps express who we are. So again, the problem isn't collecting. The problem is when it turns into chasing and gambling, and when it starts to feel like pressure instead of passion, and when you're not even sure why you're buying anymore, right? You're buying for all the wrong reasons. You're just trying to keep up or get that next hit, fill that gap that never actually truly closes, no matter how big the hit is. But if you're setting boundaries, excuse me, staying within your means and actually enjoying the stuff that you're picking up, then yeah, collecting is an awesome thing. And it can be grounding, it can be fun. So yeah, It's okay to collect. Just don't lose yourself doing it.
I absolutely love that. You kind of encompassed everything we've been talking about. You kind of wrapped it up, put a nice little button on it. That was a perfect way. And Alyx, before we go, Collectors MD. I know I kind of put it up a little bit on the screen, but Instagram, you have a website. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you guys again so much for having me. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys helping spread the word, the awareness. If you want to learn more about Collectors MD, you can follow us on Instagram, DM us. I do my best to respond to every single DM and not just like, with an emoji or a heart. I like try to be thoughtful and intentional with my responses. So please feel free to reach out. You can also check out the website, collectorsmd.com. We post daily reflections on there. Every single day, there's a new journal entry. So if you're looking for content, post there. We post on Mantle as well, which is a new community platform built for the hobby, very similar to Discord, but we are on Mantle now, and we'll be continuing to post on a daily basis there. And as we grow, as hopefully Collectors MD becomes a team beyond just me, we can start reaching individuals no matter where they're consuming content. So we already have TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, what else? Discord, YouTube, all of the above. We just, need the bandwidth to be able to syndicate across all of those channels. So hopefully sooner rather than later. But this is a collective effort. Let's do this.
Amen.
Move the needle, spread the message, spread the word, and educate people. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. And it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, Ricky, I'm glad you found Collectors MD for us to be able to sit down and have this conversation with Alyx. Again, I think it's going to be a funny little story moving forward. How I thought maybe a collector from Maryland, but that's neither here nor there. But no, it was an absolute pleasure. I mean, we definitely would love to have you on maybe, sometime down the road to kind of revisit things and kind of see, how far you've grown and, where you're at now, come then. So hopefully the door, if you would like it to be open to come back on and preach some more about what you're doing or what you have done up,
love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. We definitely appreciate it. Alyx, we will catch you in another time. Hopefully we can keep our inboxes open and converse more.
Hey, see you, man.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't expect that interview to go as long as it did. And hopefully it was a very smooth conversation for you guys because, such importance in regards to gambling. I mean, it makes or break people and, the hobby. I mean, a lot of people know it as gambling these days. People come into the shop all the time nowadays. And, they even themselves mention how it's just like gambling, whether it's buying a box or some cards. So hopefully conversation we had with Alyx, Collectors MD, was very insightful, was very informational for you. Maybe it kind of sparked a little interest to do a little bit of research yourself if you find yourself kind of, having too many of those itches and needing too much dopamine or just chasing that hit and not even having fun in this hobby. But this was an absolutely fantastic episode to make with Ricky and Alyx. And, Alyx being our first ever guest, hopefully we can have some more guests on here on Hobby Talk. But this was absolutely fun, guys, and I really hope you did enjoy it. Drop your comments down below in the comment section. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to discuss, whether it's something I said, Alyx said, Ricky said, drop those down in the comments. We definitely would love to read and react to those. And I know Alyx kind of mentioned where you can find Collectors MD, on Instagram, on, Mantle. I'm going to leave a link to his website down below in the comment section. So in case you guys didn't catch that or you weren't able to type it fast enough, you can just click on the link and it will take you wherever you need to go. Big shout out to Alyx from Collectors MD. Thank you so much again. And thank you to you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, hit that giant red subscribe button if you're new to the channel or haven't considered subscribing. I would definitely appreciate the love and support. And if you haven't already, definitely check out the channel membership program where you get exclusive content, behind the scenes, post, and so much more. You get to watch videos early than the public. The channel membership program, different tiers, different rates, they're all worth it, I promise you, but I would definitely appreciate if you could check that out. But like I said, this will wrap it up for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much. As always, I've queued up an excellent video right there for you that I do believe will be excellent for your hobby endeavors. Hopefully, I'll see you in that one.